Good evening. The regular meeting of the City Commission for Tuesday, February 11th will come to order. Please join me in silencing your cell phones. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Perrine.
Here.
Commissioner McGurk.
Here.
Commissioner Ashley. Vice Mayor Martin.
Here.
Mayor Cleveland.
I'm here.
Thank you.
All righty. And now Police Department Chaplain Bill Kitchen will lead us in the invocation. Please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father God, I pray your blessing on everybody in this building, the people who are up front here and the people who are back and care so much about the community that they come out here tonight. Thank you, Father, for that. I pray your wisdom, your patience, your civility, and your blessing on all of us here and on our first responders, all of them and their families. Amen.
Amen. And now Sasa Jarrett, a 9-year-old fifth grader, straight A student at Burns SciTech, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Sasha has been in dance for 7 years, in ballet, jazz, and hip hop. She's a member of the Kindness Club and a Swiftie. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice job. Thank you, Sasha. Good job, Sonia, Mom Sonia, and Father Ray Jared. Thank you so very much. I want to approve the agenda, Mr. City Manager. Is there any changes to the published agenda?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I would like to pull item 12A from the agenda. That is an appointment to the Animal Control Board.
Got it. Okay, 12A, pull the board consideration. Thank you. Got that. Any others, sir? That's it. Excellent. Thank you. We have no announcements and presentations, so we'll go straight to the city manager's report. All yours, sir.
Thank you, sir. I did want to draw your attention to a few things and follow up on a few items from the last meeting. We had several citizen comments that we did follow up on. One was comments concerning a vehicle crash and speeding in the Venetia neighborhood. We followed up on that. We had comments regarding apparent city employees smoking. We did follow up on that. We had concerns regarding the condition of Old Mission Road that we followed up on, and then more concerns about speeding in Venetia, and we did follow up on that. Continuing with our planning, pre-planning for your strategic plan meeting that is scheduled for March the 13th at the Brannon Center, and continuing preparations for our 2026 budget. Draw your attention to the reports that I attached in the agenda to the city manager's report. There's one monthly update on capital projects, a separate update for stormwater management projects and the status of the various projects we're working on, and then finally a status report for our parking program and implementation of the parking plan that you received. Those are a few things that we have going on, and I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I appreciate draw a note to the public for consideration of reading your report. It's a very in-depth report on both parking, mobility, and stormwater management projects. So if you haven't read that, please take a look at the city manager's report. It's very, very good. Let's move on to public participation. If there's any citizen who wishes to speak on matters pertaining to the city, that is, items pertinent to city business, please approach the podium. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak. It's a monologue, your opportunity to talk to us. It's not a question and answer session, so we won't be answering questions. If there's need for city follow-up, the city manager and city clerk will reach out to you directly. As you come forward and pick up the microphone, please give us your name and your address for the record. You'll see the green light come on. You'll have 3 minutes. At the yellow light coming on, you'll have 1 minute remaining, and then you should be done when the red light comes on. We're anxious to hear from what you have to say. Please come forward. Anyone for public participation?
Good evening. How are you? Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Cindy Harris. I'm on Glencoe Road, New Smyrna Beach. I just have a couple things. I'm going to talk about the item number so you guys can follow along with me. I was looking at some of the budget changes, and I have some questions about being transparent. One of the things was that there's a $41,000 increase to your budget, and the item was for an investigation. You should be a little bit more transparent to the public because they do look at that. I looked at that, and I was like, okay, I don't understand this. What's going on? Why, so much money coming back to the commission's budget for an investigation, not knowing what that was? That's kind of questionable to me. Also, I didn't understand where the $16 million budget increase is coming from. Is it coming from grants? Is it coming from whatever? According to the paperwork that was attached to the agenda, it's just funds transferred from this account to this account. Just, to me, kind of looked like money's washing back and forth. I'm sorry, that was I'm sorry, I didn't take the number down. Then I want to talk about 9A, which was the land where the historic trees were going to be destroyed. If we can do anything to suggest to the land developer to not destroy those historic oaks, maybe somehow rearrange his design where we can keep those oaks, because when those oaks are destroyed, we're right back where we started from with the flooding again. Once you tear out the flora and clear the land, everything's going to just start flooding and washing away again. I've seen places over in Orlando where they've built around those big oaks and just built the parking lot up higher. So maybe we can talk to them and say, keep these trees and just build around it. If it's a parking lot, maybe a suggestion would be quit developing virgin land. There's so many properties in the city limits that have already been cleared. They already have the utilities. There's no more buildings sitting on there. Let's go over here and develop this piece of property. Let's build your emergency walk-in clinic or whatever on this piece of property. Rehabilitate the deserted buildings that's around, like the Kmart. The Kmart's been standing empty for so long. Let's use that kind of stuff instead of tearing down virgin land that's so vital to what we need right now to keep the water flowing, at least until the vulnerability study is done in June of next year. So until we know what we're dealing with, let's not let any more virgin land be destroyed. And I have one question, which is actually directed for Kyle. Maybe he can answer the question. Somebody brought up the question about where the city canals stop and the county canals start, or the DOT canals start. Who is actually going to clean those up and get those ready for hurricane season this year? So thank you for your time.
Appreciate your comments, Cindy, and we'll look forward to getting back with you. I know Kyle's in the room. He may follow up with you directly.
Awesome. Thank you.
Wonderful. And before the next speaker, I might add that if your comments are pertaining to either the public hearing or the quasi-judicial hearing, you'll get an opportunity during those hearings to speak. And if you want to be on the record for that, wait till that hearing is open tonight and then come and talk. I know, Cindy, you're going to stay and you have the opportunity to talk again. But just for if you don't realize that's the protocol, those hearings will have specific comment section in each section. All right, so each item will have an opportunity for you to have a comment. Anybody else for public participation?
Give me some time to approach.
Yes, ma'am.
I have broken toes. And the doctor said he has to break them again to fix them. My name is Patricia Blake Harris. I live at 524 North Myrtle Avenue here in New Smyrna Beach. And I'm here to express my concern about the city and county drainage in the area called West Side New Smyrna Beach. It is bordered by, on the north, by Wayne Avenue. On the east, the railroad track. And I guess you say streets named Roanoke Lane, Washington Avenue, and Mary Avenues. Okay. The west side, I want you to travel all the way down Enterprise Boulevard to Halleck, Halleck, Halleck Street. And on the south side, Enterprise.
Ms. Harris, will you talk right into that microphone
Okay.
and look right up here? You're just going to talk to us.
Oh, we don't need to talk to them.
You're just going to talk to us.
These are the most important people. Okay. And the south side, Canal Street, and bordered by, well, we have Enterprise Boulevard and so on. But if you're going south, we want to stop at Canal Street for the west side community. I am concerned about the drainage and the ditches that we have located there. And we want to express our concern because hurricane season is on a few months away. We'd like to know if we could have some service for clearing out the drainage ditches. I have one personal experience with the hurricanes Milton, and we had rapids on Myrtle Avenue. We have rapids going down south, if you will, from the Wayne Street or Wayne Avenue ditch. First of all, we have, I guess you say the first area would be the back street, Arnau, A-R-N-A-U, which the buses use for coming in to service the children at Chisholm Elementary. Then we have Myrtle Avenue, okay? And Myrtle Avenue ends at the ditch. Then we have the next street, Dust Street. Dust Street ends at the ditch. We have several other streets going down or going west. We have the Cinca Avenue and Miss Bell's property. Then we have Green Lawn Terrace. Then we have Oleander, and then that's the county line. And then we have Wilkins, which turns into several other little side streets north of Enterprise Boulevard. All of those side streets end at the ditch.
So, Ms. Harris, like we talked about before the meeting, I was going to give you 3 minutes. Your 3 minutes is up.
And it's
But
up.
we got the idea, and we put you in touch with Director Ray, who's going
We would like some-
get moving. You want some help on the ditches?
Thank you. I've already made contact with your new man on the job.
All right.
And he's going to come out and see put some galoshes on, and we're going to walk the block.
Well, he's the right man for the job, ma'am. I appreciate you coming up. Thank you for your
Thank you very
views.
much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for listening, everyone. Have a good
ma'am.
evening.
Anyone else for public participation? Seeing none, public participation is now closed. Come ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mitch Rice, 2739 Tiffany Drive, New Smyrna Beach. I want to say thank you guys, thank you everyone for addressing last week, your last meetings, what I concerned about with Taylor Road and Old Mission Road. You guys came out, did some work to it, very appreciated. I'm here to be the cheerleader to keep it going. What was done is not the answer, okay? It was definitely something that was addressed. And I also have a concern because up Taylor Road, first off, I'll talk about Taylor Road, because up Taylor Road, you kind of stopped like 3/4 of the way and then just started to walk back. The drainage thing is an issue, is a theme tonight, so I have the same concern about who cleans the drains in these roads. We need to make guardrails. We need to do something for these things because I know you said you addressed Old Mission Road, but I don't know what you addressed on Old Mission Road, because Old Mission Road is just super, and I have a video that I'm gonna send you guys later. I got the email address to send it to, because once Sandalwood opens, and the amount of those homes that are condos that's going in there, and the traffic that that's gonna generate, and already the amount of semis, dump trucks that are going down Glencoe, turning on Taylor, and doing Old Mission, needs to be addressed. We got telephone poles that are like 2 feet off Old Mission Road that needs to be addressed. My kids are gonna be driving not too long, and I'm really wanting to get this addressed before they get in the car, behind the wheel. Okay, I really want these 2 roads for me to be more safe. And I'm here to cheerlead and help you guys just keep it in your thoughts and keep them going, okay? Because we really need to help the mailman, bicycle riders, and the drivers on these 2 roads, in my opinion. And the drainage thing is just its own concern, because that will obviously show its ugly face here soon. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments, sir.
Mr. Mayor, City Council. Good evening, everybody. My name is Damian Zambrana. I'm from 304 Inlet Street. One of the properties that is going to be part of the North Atlantic Drainage Project, a very much welcome improvement, I might add. As part of this, there's going to be a relocation of some natural gas lines away from their current location, 8 feet in front of my house, 8 feet away from the street. Inside the easement area. When I came back from work yesterday, there were some flags that had proposed gas line 14 feet away. I measured them 14 feet away from the street, inside the property line. I just simply ask that somebody reaches out to us during these projects, especially when it's going to affect, it's the front of the house, so it's definitely going to affect our driveway. So before we start digging, I know, Lisa, we had the meeting a couple of years ago, and that was promised that for the drainage, that was going to happen. I'm just concerned that some of these side jobs that need to be done in preparation, we're not going to, I just don't want it to turn out to be like Beacon Street sewage, where all of a sudden I went to work and I came back that evening and I had a ton of equipment in the property that I had to work with a foreman to remove away from the property area, since we don't have a fenced in. That's all I ask. Please keep us informed and work with us, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Damon. Appreciate your comments. Hello, Cindy.
Good evening. Cindy Snuzak, 512 Yukon. It's difficult actually to bring this topic up this evening, but I wanted the commission to know what the clerk and the city attorney is already aware of. This concerns item 7A on the consent agenda, which is the minutes from the special meeting that was held near the end of January, and item 8A, and a little bit on 8B. So I learned after the fact, by somehow looking through the city website, that there was a special meeting called on January 23rd. So my question, and perhaps the manager can answer it in the next meeting, is what was the posting process for that second special meeting? Because I'm usually pretty on top of what gets posted on the website. So it may be the rules of a special meeting are that they can be called impromptu, but when was that notice given? When was it put on the website? And when was the agenda published? So that's one thing. Also, those minutes probably need a little bit of an amendment, because they talk about the suspended city clerk actually preparing the minutes for those meetings, and I'm not sure that's what actually happened, so that might be a typo to address. The other thing is, not specific to the documents that I reviewed, because there weren't really that many, although it was great that the separation agreement was attached. And it's sad that, it has come to that. But I made a public records request, and I don't remember if it was Thursday or Friday of last week, thinking that because the results of the investigative report were openly discussed at the commission meeting by the attorney, and there was discussion back and forth, and that the separation agreement was already shared in the public record, I foolishly thought that I could get a copy of the investigative report. But the response to my 2 inquiries on that were, it's an open investigation and it's still active. So I read the statute, seems like a gray area to me, but you voted on certain things and openly discussed certain personnel issues in this forum. So I have difficulty squaring that with the attestation that there's an open and active investigation on what happened with that position. So I'm looking forward to some answers to that to help me understand it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else for public participation?
Hi, I'm Diane Wojcicki, and I live at 313 Citrus Open Drive. Where do I begin? I had seen quickly on just a quick flash that there would be talking about flooding tonight, so that's, and then I looked at the agenda and didn't see it, so I thought, okay, I'll ask anyhow. We were flooded by Ian, and there was 22 to 27, depending on what report you look at, inches of rain. This year with Milton, there was half of that. There was 11 inches of rain, and our house was almost flooded again. So in those 2 years, it's got considerably worse, you know, at least in our area. And so I continue to see the building going on. I have seen wetland being used, and where I'm from, you know, it's illegal to be building on wetlands. I love the idea, and also dredging was promised in the estuaries. We were flooded from the mainland. We weren't flooded from the estuary. So we had a wave of water coming to us. So I'm terrified if in 2 years, half the water almost flooded us, and I need to know what's happening and what can be done. I love the idea of no more building on virgin land. That's a great solution. And the dredging and other things that can be done. So I just wanted to have a voice. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Appreciate that. Anyone else for public participation? Seeing none, public participation is now closed. Thank you all for your comments. Let's move on to the consent agenda, number 7 here. Does any member of the commission have a comment on any of the items, A through G? Any member of the commission wish to pull any of those items? 7C. Anybody else? Okay. Seeing none, no more, I would entertain a motion to approve item 7, Alpha, Bravo, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, and Golf.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Yes, ma'am.
Just one clarification. In front of you, you had a revision to the minutes, which is 7A, that included more particularity in regards to the land use change that was done north of 44 near the assisted living facility. So you have that in there, and the approval would be for those amended minutes.
So motion should include as amended. Got a motion for that? Thank you, ma'am. And there was a second. Great. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Perine?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Cleveland?
Yes. Okay. Those are approved. We're going to move on to administrative and new business.
7C.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. We did pull 7C. Okay. This is the license agreement to allow the pavers at 1371 North Atlantic. Yes.
This is in the area of the North Atlantic Stormwater Project. And I have some difficulty approving adding impermeable area to an area with existing water management issues. And I'm also concerned that when the North Atlantic Stormwater Project is done, that it would then disturb these pavers and we would somehow be responsible for replacing them. So I'm not comfortable with approving this at this time.
Got it. Very good. Mr. City Manager, any enlightenment on that, sir?
The license agreement does specifically provide for, they know they do this at their own risk, and if we have to come by tomorrow and rip them out, it's on them to replace them.
That's in the wording somewhere. Okay, that helps a little bit.
And they are aware that there is...
Stephanie Doster from the Planning Department is here. Go ahead, enlighten us, ma'am.
So they're also aware of the stormwater project. The city engineer has consulted with them on the improvements in that area. So they are willing to accommodate in any way. I think the only thing that was going to interfere was maybe the redirection of a gas line. So
Well, these pavers already exist, right?
they are in progress. Yeah.
They're in progress.
They started the project and then came to us for an after-the-fact permit and started this process.
So by approving this, we are in fact condoning doing first and asking for permission afterwards.
You don't answer that. That's fine, don't.
They will be applying for their after-the-fact permit after this meeting, and then moving forward with whichever direction needs.
Yeah, we understand that the project is in progress. We're trying to remedy the situation and get the appropriate approvals in place. If you desire not to approve it, that's certainly your prerogative.
And it's just really complicated by the stormwater project also. So, okay.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any further discussion? I'll entertain a motion then on item 7C.
Second?
I need a motion first.
Oh, I'll make that motion.
Great.
Sorry.
Second.
And there's a second. Any further discussion? Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Martin?
No.
Commissioner Perrine?
Yes.
Mayor Cleveland?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Item 8A is the approval of a separation agreement. Madam City Attorney, your report, ma'am.
Yes, so we did call that special meeting in January. The timing of that was we received the investigative report probably around 10 a.m. The meeting was posted at noon. It was posted online. It was posted in City Hall. The law requires reasonable notice. In light of the circumstances, this was reasonable notice. You heard the report at that time. In the interim, Ms. McQuillan has submitted a letter of resignation, and before you is a separation agreement that allows for an orderly transition to the next interim clerk.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for the city attorney? Any discussion amongst my colleagues?
Motion to approve?
Second.
There is a motion to approve and second. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Perrine?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Cleveland?
Yes, and the motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 8B, consideration of a contract for an interim city clerk. And again, Madam City Attorney.
Yes, at that same special meeting, Ms. Taylor Harding was appointed interim city clerk. This contract will go back to that starting date and cover her salary and benefits from that date moving forward, and it provides for some contingencies in the event different events happen in the future.
Any questions for the city attorney about the contract with for an interim city clerk? I then would entertain a motion.
Motion.
To approve.
Second.
Second. So before we do the vote, lest any of you from the public think this was an easy process. This was uncomfortable. This was unfortunate. We have placed great faith in our city clerk. Our previous city clerk has served the city well. An investigation was held and cost us $41,000, and that's what that went to. And we have read the report. It's still sealed until this matter's over. Then it'll be available to the public. A lot of reasons for that. And it should be abundantly clear after, it was abundantly clear to me after reading the report that Ms. McQuillan took the right course of action, and we've accepted her resignation. Sadly, but it was the right thing at the right time.
Mayor, just one add-on. The investigative report will remain exempt from public records for 7 days until this agreement actually takes effect.
There's a clause that allows reconsideration by Ms. McQuillan, and after that period of time is over, this will be a done deal and open to the public. And so we're lucky and fortunate to have someone who can step right into that, and that's Ms. Harding. And so thank you, Sharon, for stepping up in the interim. I look forward to having this passed. Madam City Clerk, please call a roll.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Perrine?
Yes.
Mayor Cleveland?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. 8B is approved. Okay. And this is a treat coming up here. I think this is our new city finance director's first time before the public, and now, so our finance director, Joanne Drury, is here with a report, and I'm anxious to see it again. I appreciate your pre-brief, and this will be a nice enlightenment for the public on any question of transparency. I appreciate what you've done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think there's a presentation. Just get it queued up here. Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Joanne Drury, Finance Director for the New Smyrna Beach Finance Department. I'd like to introduce a change to our process with the quarterly budget amendment. Currently, budget amendments are presented to the City Commission on an ad hoc basis, which can be unclear and time-consuming for staff. By moving to a quarterly process, we can improve transparency and efficiency. Quarterly amendments will provide a clear, comprehensive view of the budget adjustments and reduce the frequency of changes presented to you, making it easier for everyone to understand and manage. This quarterly budget amendment presented tonight is comprised of 3 types of budget adjustments: budget neutral adjustments, adjustments to recognize unanticipated revenues, and adjustments to align the budget with prior City Commission decisions. Budget neutral adjustments do not increase or decrease the city's overall budget. However, according to City Charter, they still require City Commission approval as funds are being transferred between departments, programs, or projects. These adjustments are generally initiated by individual departments. The budget neutral adjustments listed here encompass transfers between departments, transfers between capital projects, a transfer from operating budget to capital outlay, and a transfer from operating contingencies for renovations and legal fees. Adjustments to recognize unanticipated revenues ensure that available resources are transparent and accessible. These adjustments include unanticipated interest earnings and unspent resources carried forward from the prior fiscal years. The budget adjustments listed here will increase the budget by $9.6 million and will be allocated to operating contingencies for future projects or purchases, or allocated to debt service sinking fund reserves.
The adjustments on this slide will align the budget with prior City Commission decisions from the first quarter of fiscal year 2025. They cover the Volusia County opioid grant, the Turnbull land acquisition, the reallocation of the American Rescue Plan Act grant, road resurfacing, AED refurbishments using special law enforcement trust fund dollars, and general fund support for reduced or no-fee rentals at the Brannon Center for not-for-profit organizations. Altogether, these adjustments will increase the budget by $7.2 million. In summary, the budget adjustments will increase the fiscal year 2025 budget by $16.9 million, from $167.9 million to $184.8 million. This increase is primarily driven by one-time, non-reoccurring funds earmarked for capital expenditures and grants rather than ongoing operating expenses.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Are there any questions for our finance director? I see Commissioner Perrine's hand.
Hi, Joe. Thank you for answering my million questions yesterday. I had a night's rest over this, woke up and had several more, so I appreciate you helping me yesterday through this and then today. I mentioned yesterday why James Moore didn't recognize this, that this wasn't moved from the last 4 years over and recaptured. Is there a way that we can have our new auditor, since we have a new auditor now, check these changes for us when they do the next audit?
Yes, as part of the audit, the auditors are looking at the financial statements and making an opinion about whether they're presented fairly. In order to look at the budget issues we're discussing, we would need to do a separate engagement, but that is definitely something we could consider.
I would like to recommend that, since this is such a large amount, almost $17 million, that they just take a look at this, since it was missed the last 4 years by our previous auditor. And in my expertise, we always ask for a new auditor when we have a new finance director and a new city manager, and we did that this year for public. We have a brand new audit team, and I'm looking forward for them working with you, and hopefully they can just check these changes so all of us can be updated on that. And then I have another question. Why is the police being charged for submerged culverts versus stormwater or general services?
The damage to the culvert was during the hurricane. There was approximately $5 million budgeted for hurricane repairs, so we felt that using that hurricane repair budget was appropriate for this expense. So the money is being transferred from the hurricane repair to the police budget to fix the culvert. It's not eligible for FEMA reimbursement, therefore we didn't charge it directly to the hurricane budget.
And the $3,000 from sports complex to skate park, can you elaborate on that?
Sure. The skate park identified a need for signage, approximate cost $3,000. Instead of increasing the budget, they looked at their sports complex budget to see where they might be able to cut back and reallocate that money to the to the skate park without increasing the budget.
And my last one is the $12,000 to Brannon Center for the not-for-profit rentals.
Back in December, the Leisure Services Director presented a business plan for the Brannon Center that included a recommendation for $50,000 to be transferred from the general fund to Brannon Center for not-for-profit assistance, reduced rentals, or free rentals. That would be put into the 2026 recommended budget. He then looked at what he would need for the 2025, the rest of the year, and he estimated about $12,000 would be needed to implement that recommendation. He found the money within his existing leisure services budget by cutting back on some additional line items, so it's budget neutral.
So we didn't use the 50, we're using 12 instead? Is that what you just said?
The $50,000 would be put into the proposed budget for 2026.
For next year?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay,
Yes.
that's what I thought. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. There are others? So just for the those that may not be skilled budget finance folks. As I understand it, you found $16 million, nearly $17 million that was never brought forward from a previous year. And so our current budget did not accurately reflect all the funds that were on hand. And now you've put them in various buckets in the departments that were appropriate. So we've done some appropriate accounting transfers to the funds that would use those. Is that right?
That's correct.
And so now we can actually see, it's not that your budget, it's not that we will spend more money this year, it's just now that we will fully recognize all the money that is available.
Correct.
So in my mind, there will be some money that will always go forward into the next fiscal year, which was invisible to us previously, right?
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I understood the essence. Okay, very good. Well, thank you so very much. I appreciate that.
And to emphasize that, for us, is increasing transparency and enabling me as your city manager to understand our finances better so that we can know what resources that we have and where those resources are and develop budgets in alignment with your strategic vision. So the finances director's doing a fabulous job looking at the budget and helping me understand, and hopefully we'll be able to provide monthly reports to you. You get those reports now. I think they're a little bit difficult to read. We're hoping to make some improvements there. You all have independently asked me about the various special funds that we have and the enterprise funds and how they operate. We're continuing to look at all of those funds and to present those to you in an understandable manner so that you can see just exactly how those different business enterprises are working, whether they are breaking even or not. And again, it's just all in an effort for us and you to be transparent with the public.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I think that's the essence of what Commissioner Perrine's comments were about the protocol of having a new manager, a new finance director, and then a new auditor to make sure everything is sanguine, and that's exactly what we've executed. So hats off to you for jumping in and immediately having to find a new finance director, and an ace that you did find in Ms. Drury. So thank you for stepping up. I would entertain a motion to approve this resolution 0225, which is going to amend the 2024
I'll make that
budget.
motion.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Perrine,
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk,
Yes.
Mayor Cleveland.
Yes. 0225 has been adopted. Thank you very much, Ms. Drury. We're going to move now to the quasi-judicial hearing. We're going to conduct a quasi-judicial hearing in consideration of the approval of application HTR 4-24, historic tree removal at the commercial property 190 Southwest Orange Drive. The quasi-judicial hearing is now open. Anxious to hear from our compliance coordinator, Channing Malalo. Your report, sir.
All right, can everybody hear me okay? Just making sure.
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
All right. So this is a public hearing to consider the approval of application number HTR 4-24, historic tree removal of 2 live oak trees and 1 American elm tree on the commercial property at 190 South Wild Orange Drive. So as you can see on the screen, subject property includes, and this is a correction from the initial staff report, the 2 southerly parcels were actually not in the future land use map as a PUD. They're still under low density residential. So it does include 5 existing vacant parcels zoned PUD. 3.27 acres in total, located on the south side of State Road 44, on the corner of State Road 44 and South Wild Orange Drive, and as previously mentioned, zoned planned unit development. We did get a report from ISA certified arborist Ray Jarrett on the 3 trees selected for removal in consideration for this conceptual plan. On your map, you have tree number 4, which is a live oak measuring at 44.5 inches, which we always round up to 45 inches, considered healthy and vigorous. Tree number 8 is an American elm, 40 inches, healthy and vigorous. This is proposed for removal. Tree has a vertical crack and cavity at the base with an active beehive inside. The callus growth around this crack is substantial, suggesting the tree has compartmentalized the wound and stabilized. And tree number 9, which is a live oak, measuring at 52.5 inches, considered healthy and vigorous, which is proposed for removal. So in a letter submitted by the applicant, they did touch on a few points about this property, noting that it is not in this conceptual site plan, or in this conceptual plan, even though it's not possible to make reasonable use of the property without impacting 3 of the 9 historic trees. So again, there are 9 historic trees on this site. They're proposing to save 6 of those. There are minimum standards that they are meeting or exceeding in the LDR requirements. LDR requires 13 specimen and historic trees to be preserved on the property, and we are proposing to preserve 13 specimen trees, 6 of which are historic and in good health. In addition, the total natural vegetation and tree preservation is 1.10 acres, which is 34%, instead of the required 0.98 acres, which is 30%. And open space is proposed to total 2.09 acres at 64%, instead of the required 0.98 acres, which is 30%. Another condition that the property owner would agree to is to utilize mature trees rather than our 2.5-inch caliper trees. They would agree to 4-inch caliper trees for tree mitigation, which is, the 2.5 inches are allowed by the LDR. So as you can see on this picture, the PUD for this particular area is under review, currently under review by staff. It did expire, so this is just one step in the interim with the conceptual plan. So this is coming first because those historic trees are a concern. And then the site plan, or the PUD will come later, then the site plan approval finally. So, considering the evidence proposed, staff recommends approval of the removal of the 3 historic trees. Considering the applicant has demonstrated that no other feasible option exists to preserve the trees with the proposed site plan and the ability to preserve 6 more historic trees on site. This approval should be applied with the condition that the final site plan for the New Smyrna Wellness Complex must still gain approval prior to the removal of trees. And then at least 3 of those replacements, required replacements included in the landscape plan, be live oaks measuring 12 feet tall, 4 inches in diameter, and they're planted on site upon construction completion. So that is the end of my staff report. If there are any questions.
Maybe any members of the commission have questions for Mr. Maiolo? Yes, ma'am?
Okay. Years ago, there was a car dealership on US 1 and Industrial that was, it's where the storage, where now all aboard storage is, okay. And the car dealership, when it was built, actually built around the historic trees and managed to coexist quite nicely. And I'm wondering if any creative architectural work could be done to do it on this property. As we know, we are it's already an area with flooding. We know that the roots of those trees absorb a lot of water. And could we have a compromise where they manage to be creative builders?
Yep. So that could be a question for the applicant tonight. If you look at the conceptual, they did stub out some of the parking areas to save a few of the trees. The trees proposed for removal are within the parking area. So being a parking question and consideration, that may be something that the applicant could work with us on.
Any other questions for Channing? Channing, how many parking places are they required to have?
I'm not positive I know the answer to that question at the time, but
I'd like to know the answer,
applicant's
but
here.
I'll need that answer before we can conclude.
Okay.
You don't know how many they're required?
No, not at this time. In the original, they were approved, in the original PUD, they were approved for 24,000 square feet of commercial buildings with 96 parking spaces. So that's a baseline, but the applicant can certainly.
So the 96 is what they need or what they have?
That's what they were approved for previously.
So my question remains, how many do they need and how many do they have? If you can figure that out before we get done, great.
Yeah, sure, we can get that answer for you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you for your presentation. Appreciate that. The applicant is here, and so we'd like to hear what you have to say. Name and address for the record.
Good evening, Joey Posey, 420 South Nova, attorney for the applicant. And I have a small presentation, too, that dives into some of these questions that came up. So anticipating that these are important parts of the discussion because of the question of why. You know, why do we have to get rid of them? Why do they need to be removed? And of course, we have a very accommodating client that really wants to preserve them. And if that was a place we could end up, we're always happy to have that discussion, but given the restrictions we have on the property, I'll just walk through and maybe paint the picture with a little more detail about why we're really constrained by the site design. So, if I can make this work. There we go. As we pointed out in the staff report, it's a little bit of an irregular shape in that it wraps around 44, so you are constrained a little bit on the frontage because you have the COZ. There's an additional buffer zone that's not in a lot of other areas in the city. It's 50 feet on top of the UC's insistence on having that additional 25 feet. So you're talking 75 feet immediately taken off of the frontage of the property. So on a deep property, that makes sense. On a rectangular property, that makes it very difficult to lay out a building plus a parking lot. And it's also in the State Road 44 PUD overlay. So that zoning or that future land use requires me to do a plan development. I don't have a choice. And it also has minimum requirements in terms of what its entitlements for when it comes to commercial. There's also entitlements when it comes to a minimum, or that you can go up to 18 units per acre. But there's a lot that comes into that discussion when you're talking about the entitlements for the property. But to maybe we'll come back a little bit, that and the previous plan that we're talking about is the Coronado Office Park, which was approved in 2010. There's a number of uses that were included in, which includes hotels, motels, restaurants, theaters, multifamily units, and it explicitly states 18 units per acre. And it was divided into two buildings of 12,000 square feet, which is how you got to the 24,000 square foot number of actual building space. And the total required parking, as mentioned in that PD, the code minimum at the time was 96. They showed 99, and that was what the approved plan had. We'll get to it in a second, but the actual minimum for the site we're proposing, it's a little just north of 20,000 square feet, which is smaller than the previous approval, and our minimum requirement's 80, and we're showing 80. We're at the bare minimum. And from our perspective, we think we're a little bit overparked, but we're required by code to provide that. We have no choice. A little bit about the history of this too is that the gentleman who bought this property is actually a local doctor. He works at the New Smyrna Wellness Center. He's been in practice in the area for 13 years and been at his existing site for 10 years. And he's actually a primary care, which is very rare these days. The reason he's moving is partly he rents and it's a smaller space, but two, there's such a growing need for primary care that he needs a bigger space. He has no choice. And, he even hears, I just talked to him about a half hour ago where he said, I get colleagues who are telling me that there's a year wait for people to see a primary care specialist. And that's really the driving force here. He wants to be about half of that space. That's who he wants to be, and he also wants to augment it with other things such as physical therapy, other provider necessities that he can take to use the space for. So there's a clear need for how we got here, and it's not in a vacuum. I want to at least dispel some rumors that when folks hear that somebody's moving in, where what's happening, who's here, it's a local guy. And we tried to do that with the PD too, where we restrict back some of the uses. We're talking just medical uses. There's nothing beyond that. There's some dental office that would be even potentially a possibility, and some outpatient care if that physical therapy is an element of it. There's no residential component, no intense commercial or any commercial whatsoever outside of the medical office. And like I mentioned previously, you have the frontage buffer requirement for the COZ, which is a little different from what it was in 2010. We're required to show immediately come off 75 feet, which wasn't the case in 2010. And also, if you look closely at the previous plan, a lot of the parking was included in those buffer areas, where that is not the case anymore. The only two improvements that are in the buffer areas on all sides are the access points and the monument sign. That is the only improvements. The next one is, because we shrunk the building, we were able to maximize the space to the greatest extent we could. We have much more open space. We have a 64% open space requirement. We're preserving all of the wetland. And if you're looking at this plan, there's a hashed line that runs the property on the south side. That's the delineation between the future land use categories. So the low intensity residential is to the south of that. We're proposing nothing but I think 4 parking stalls in that area. And everything to the north is the State Road 44 PUD. So that's really the rationale of how we got here. And I do have the engineer available, and maybe just to give a little bit of context for his site design, that it probably would be helpful if he just chimed in on how we got here and maybe walk through a little bit of that, because obviously we want to be just as conscious as anybody about preserving those historic oaks, and just the standards of preservation and trying to design around that are very different than they were. I'm sure the Holcomb facility was that the Chevy was designed, and if there's a way to work this out, there's just so many new heightened code requirements that narrow those footprints in every direction. So I'm going to let Matt Douse take it over here for a second and dive into that.
Perfect. Evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Cleveland. I'm pretty sure you know my pops. I haven't got to meet you yet, but it's nice to be before you guys again. Like Joey said,
just your name and record for
Matthew Dowse with Mark Dowse and Associates.
Thank you.
Like Joey said and staff said, we've worked with staff. It's not just a historic tree removal application. We've actually worked with staff about a year and a half, coming up with a design and using the parking lot with the building and reducing the impact to the overall site that the previous PUD was. The previous PUD was underneath the requirements where Joey mentioned that we didn't have a 75-foot front buffer, 25 for the Utilities Commission easement, 50-foot, and that was over the course of the last 5 years. And I do think that is a good thing for a lot of projects on, and so we worked with staff to maintain that 50-foot buffer. And then what's unique about this site is it's not that large of a site, and it has 9 historic trees on the site. We're almost preserving 70% of all the historic trees. We've worked with the parking lot layout. We've combined instead of 2 buildings, we made 1 building, and we have an entrance off of 44 and a secondary entrance off the side street. So we have worked with staff. Typically, you wouldn't get a strong recommendation from approval from staff on removing 3 historic trees, I would believe. But in this case, we've worked with them, and I would just appreciate if we get to approval and we could actually move to the next step where we could review the PUD and get to a site plan design.
Thank you, Matthew.
And to turn back to the presentation, I'm almost done. Like you said, there's just such challenges. And when you look at this map and you see the locations, the drip lines, the routes that are readily available to you, there isn't any. You would either have to put the building in the northwesterly corner of the property with no frontage for parking because of the COZ, or you tuck it away in the rear, but again, you can't get the access to get to it because of the line of trees that really separate this property into 2 and also force your building footprint to be on the west side of the property with the rear parcel. There's just so many difficulties with this, and that's why it took us so long to get here. They're really just trying to figure out what is the best way forward, what is the best way to lay this out to ensure that there's no net loss. We're not looking to have a tree come forward with a tree plan that doesn't provide with what would be what everybody would envision the goal for this property, given that it had a PUD approval back from 2010. And again, just to point out the parking, we've actually, the site with a shrunk building is actually minimum requirement is 60 parking spots, and that's how many we're showing. We're at the minimum. It's not any less than that, and again, we're constrained by code, and again, we think we're a little bit overparked, but just given the site design, we are at the minimum. And the original plan provided for 99, which was the code requirement at the time was 96. And we're also avoiding the impacts in that low-density residential area, which has its own set of entitlements too. So we do appreciate all of the work staff put into this, their recommendation. We have no problem trying to accommodate and have more mature trees as the planting to ensure that it doesn't, there's no real net loss in terms of what the aesthetic would be, that it's, day one, it's better than, better than the small trees, but at the same time, you still have those major oaks that are still out there. We're looking to preserve those in all the buffers. We're not trying to impact those. So outside of that, that's the presentation. So we're available for questions. Again, if there was a way to design this that there's an accommodation for code requirements, it'd be a different story. But given just the footprint and the limitations that we have to work with, there's really only an option or two, and that doesn't avoid having to impact a tree for access and for parking.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Joey. Any questions for Mr. Posey? Yes, ma'am.
Well, and this may not necessarily be for you, but one question I would have is, could we do a variance to reduce the parking requirements that would then save those trees? Particularly since we know in the retention area, the health of trees in that retention area is always problematic.
Right.
But if we could reduce the parking requirements to save those trees, would that be a workable solution?
And I'm going to lean to the engineer a little bit here and see if there's some design accommodations we can make. And the other thing I want to just remind everybody that's listening is that this is the first step. Even regardless of the outcome tonight, the PD has to come back and there has to be a consistency with the requirements of the code and also that zoning requirement in itself. So there's an opportunity to maybe work in some solutions here. So I'm going to lean to the engineer here and ask on those 3 trees if a reduction in parking and maybe removal of some stalls, does that help alleviate or help accommodate the access or the drive aisles that can avoid those impacting those 3 trees?
So, Matthew, while you're thinking on your feet here, let me throw one other one in to what Commissioner Martin has got. Is there an option to move that secondary entrance from where it is somewhere up further or add another entrance? Would that help if you did that? I'm looking at this, irregular parcel with a regular building on it, so I get that. And so moving it a little bit closer to the north looks like it might change the dynamic from how many from where you could enter, where you could depart, and also not have to remove those trees. Think about that.
Yeah, you're mentioning the secondary off of Wild Orange Drive.
Yeah.
That's actually, the entrances is not what's impacting those trees, it's the drive aisle. So even if you shifted it to the north, it would, and like say it was centered with the building, the 2 historic trees that are in that drive aisle are actually right at the entrance of the building where it's placed. And
let me do it differently then. Why it's a nice symmetrical building on a not symmetrical lot. Move the entrance
move the entrance.
to the building.
Oh, of the building?
Did you design the building?
No, we did.
You got another architect. You did the engineering. Okay, good enough. So that's. I'm neither. And I'm an engineer, but I'm not your type of engineer. But it's a nice square, rectangular box with a nice entranceway in the center. If you move the entranceway, That's what's in the way, that's what the trees are, is in the entranceway, right?
Yes, correct, yes. But even if we eliminated the entrance, the actual like awning where you pull over, the drive aisle to get the circulation, to have access to the parking spaces that we're required to have, no matter what, if you move the building, just say we mirror the building so it's on Wildwood Drive or Wild Orange, then you're impacting the trees by the building footprint. If we move the building to the north along 44, there's not enough space to actually get the building and have access to the building based on the buffer. So we were actually ratcheted down to put the building in the place that it was and then also provide access. Another thing with the parking is we're meeting the minimum requirement of 80 parking spaces, and those parking spaces are 9 foot, not 10 foot. So with that, we're already reducing the width to make that work and maintain the open space, actually more open space than we're required.
Still like Commissioner Martin's question, how many parking places would you have to get rid of to allow that? And if what you're saying is, doesn't matter, it's all about the entrance of the building, I'll go back to my other question, can you move the entrance to the building?
Without impacting another historic tree that we're saving, most likely not. That's.
Well, one of the things, we have an ongoing, we have, huge expanses of unfilled parking spaces along 44. And it's sort of like, I think an argument can be made that it is more critical to reduce the amount of asphalt and ground coverage than to provide huge numbers of parking spaces. I think that's one of the areas of our code that perhaps hasn't evolved recently. So if there is a way that we could be, serve two purposes.
Is it safe for me to assume then, and maybe if I just recouch what the site design questions are, that if when it comes to drive aisle, when it comes to parking, in terms of minimum number plus layout, those are accommodations that I think the tree takes priority over those issues, I presume. Is that the direction I'm hearing? Is that a safe assumption?
You probably can't get the entire commission on that, but that's certainly the view of Commissioner Martin. I'm just looking for options so that you can have the building and preserve the trees. If there was some middle ground there, that's great. If you're looking for a waiver from the city, we'll consider that for sure.
Okay.
But we're just doing some gymnastics here to try to help you make this work.
And that's exactly right, Mayor. I'm trying to maybe get some feedback and direction on where we would head from, explaining to the site design team on how to lay this out, because if in terms of the COZ buffering and the minimum standard dimensional criteria for your drive aisles and your parking stall dimensions and your minimum numbers, if those are things that we can explore and with the understanding that the priority of the tree is given the weight of the two is what we're aimed for to keep the project feasible, then that direction's appreciated, because I just don't want to get into an endless discussion about where the footprint falls, given whether we're looking at minimum standards, whether we're looking at.
Well, no, I was going to just ask another question. One of the things I was thinking about is, and I don't know this, but there have certainly been periods where different size parking spaces have been accommodated. Compact parking only, huge oversized pickup trucks over there, whatever. If we were creative in terms of the amount of parking needed and the ability to have different sized parking spaces, would that create a template, if you will, for you to come back and say, yeah, if we do this, that, we can save all the trees?
And I think that it does with a but, since I'm an attorney, that as long as the understanding is we really don't have many choices of where the building can go. So if we have an understanding there, then trying to modify the design and the criteria associated with those minimum requirements that exercise makes sense, that if we can get there and we can at least put as much as we can on our side in terms of with staff to try to modify those requirements to get there. I caution to say that the plan may still be the plan at the end of the day, given that exercise, but with the constraints we have, because the building has to be where it is, and some of these standards I just can't avoid in terms of the access length, and we can even look at maybe relocating the access, but as Matt has indicated, that there's just some clearance requirements that are just not going to change regardless.
Can you put the picture up again that has the colored, the red and the green trees?
I wish I could zoom in a little bit.
It's all right. All right, so and we'll probably ask Director Corbin what his view is on parking type waivers to see how that floats with the city staff. That was one option. The other option that I proposed that we not got any traction yet. The entrance is directly in the center of the building, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Where those two trees are. Can you move it to the left or to the right?
And I agree with you that probably should be an attempt made on our side to see how that layout looks. We may still be constrained by the drive aisle needing to accommodate the parking, but that exercise I think it's fair to explore that.
Any other questions for the applicant? Yes, sir.
Touching on the issue that both the mayor and Commissioner Martin brought up, it looks like it's possible that you can remove some parking spaces that would become part of the drive lane. Mm-hmm. I guess the question is, how realistic is that with our planning staff?
Right.
And I get where you're going. I know we're asking you tough questions, and you're right by asking, does the tree going to take precedent over everything else? And I think that we need to be fair in giving you direction on that and not having you spend a lot of money and time on something. Yeah. So I like the direction where it's going. I like we're trying to find something, but I also don't want to have a lot of time spent also from our staff ignoring it to get back to the same place we are today. The front yard setbacks off 44, they've been widened. And the reason they were widened was because we were not capturing enough of the natural vegetation. And that's where we had the moratorium to take a look at it. We widened it. It was also an issue with the UC. They seemed to want everything taken down to put the lines under. This part, at least part of this property, used to be a home. What is happening in this front yard setback along 44 with any natural vegetation? Is it all coming out?
No, I'll let him speak to that too.
Yeah, if you can give me some indication on what's happening up front in that setback.
So there's existing trees in the front buffer. There was actually a previous historic tree in the front buffer that the hurricane took down. And similarly to like the two trees that, they say they're healthy, but there are some damage to those trees in the front. And so we have lost trees through the last couple storms. We would love if all these historic trees were in that 75-foot buffer in the front, we wouldn't be here today. They'd be located and they'd be preserved.
My question is, how is there a vegetative landscape buffer, natural vegetation that's going to be maintained there?
And the representation I will make today is that as part of that PD moving forward, you will see that the existing vegetation is intended to be maintained. So I don't have the numbers and the trees in front of me, but the representation you will see is the preservation is a priority, and we will preserve all of those trees out there unless I'm getting clear direction from the engineer, which we'll be transparent about, that there may be a reason for impacting. But I'll make that representation when this PD comes forward.
So let me also, and this is more too, when we start reducing parking spaces, I know you say you may be overparked, but I recently went to some medical facilities on Clyde Morris around Big Tree, all brand new facilities. They don't have parking. There's not enough parking. Everyone's parking all over the curbs, parking all over the side of the streets. The layout looks very nice. It's very, I mean, I imagine from 44, it's going to be very aesthetically pleasing. I like the design. It's an odd lot. It looks unique. But I'd certainly defer. I'm not an expert. And the fact that you're saving 6 out of 9 historic trees, I do want to commend you for that. That is a great step. It's not perfect, but that's good. And I think when staff takes a look at this, we're going to need to value losing spaces. I think at least 1, if not 2 trees can be saved if we somehow take away parking from you.
Understood.
But the irony in this community is now we're reducing the number of parking spaces when we're always looking for parking. And I've just been to some new facilities, medical facilities, that already don't have enough parking. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Commissioner Perrine.
So Commissioner McGurk made a valid point. He said we're saving 6 out of 9 trees. I heard from the audience someone say that, why are we building on virgin land? Put this in the Kmart. That's really not realistic, because what are the legal implications if we were to totally deny them to build on this land and they already own this land?
That would be a taking, yeah.
Yeah, that would be a property rights taking. So that's not an option. And we have to be realistic on what we can do and what we can tell the property owners, and also balanced, because we know what's been happening with flooding. But removal of 3 trees, which 1 is dead, 2 are not, saving that. It's not going to be a perfect world. If we could save the parking or reduce the parking and save the trees, that would be wonderful. And if it can be done, but I don't know how our staff could go back and do that without creating a hardship on the business owner from not having enough parking places and to run a business. So I just want to state these things so that people are realistic. You can't take property owner rights away from individuals and tell a person they can't build anything. That's not a viable option at all, ever. So wipe that from your slate. So we have to become realistic and look at what you're presenting tonight. We're doing this before the PUD, so you don't spend a ton of money bringing this back to us and us deny it for the trees, because I heard that in an email today too. Doesn't work that way either. So this is realistic. We are looking at everything. We care about trees, and we care about the economic impact and the taxes this is going to bring. And it's a nice balance that we all have to look at and be really reasonable. And this is a quasi, and it's the information that you present to us tonight. So I just wanted to remind everybody, we're not tree haters. We love trees. We're not business haters. We love businesses. We have to find that nice balance for everyone so that we don't flood. If you leave the natural vegetation, if you leave the historic trees that you can, then we go from here, make a decision.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. For a minute, would you go into the storm water preservation and what provisions you're going to pave over and put paved parking? Is there what's the stormwater retention plan so there's no runoff into other places?
The stormwater prevention plan, it's going to be a combined system with an exfiltration trench, which also goes through the center of the drive aisle. And then we're going to use a dry retention area to make up that volume. It hasn't been fully designed. We're at this step with the historic trees before we go into full design with St. John's, DOT, and the city ordinances, which new city ordinances are coming. But one thing came to mind about recommendations on reducing parking and so forth. These aren't the only 13 specimen trees on site, which includes 6 trees. There are additional specimen trees that we could potentially save. So if we do have the ability, if we remove these 3 trees, if we move forward, we are happy to work with staff to maybe save a 30-inch tree that we could have saved. It might be worth saving more than that historic tree, just because it's in a better location. we could avoid it. It's just with, like we said, with the parking, the drive aisles, the access, and the building, we're limited, we kind of have our hands tied with the layout. But we would like to work with staff through the site plan and PUD process if we could save more trees.
Any other questions for the applicant before I call the staff up again?
Yeah, well, basically, my thing is that I would like to know if it's possible to make varying size parking spaces and to forgive some of those parking spaces, and I think that staff
question
that might weigh in on that, because the less asphalt, the more trees, we're all happier, right?
Appreciate the applicant's presentation. We'll get back to you. And now, Mr. Corbin, you know what we want to know, so tell us what the playground looks like.
Good evening, Shane Corbin, Development Services. Well, they've described everything pretty well. This is an odd parcel, narrow, obviously wooded, and the challenge is that these trees are going to be in the drive aisle. So we're more than happy to work with them if they want to go back to the drawing board a little bit, and knowing that you guys would be open to perhaps giving up some parking spaces in order to accommodate some additional trees, then I think staff would be very supportive of that, as long as we think you've got direction from you to do so.
Question, Shane, is what's reasonable from a from using math and science? What's reasonable, and how much of a reduction is that? And you don't have to answer that on the fly here, but that's where we're headed. So don't let us push you around. You got to say what the right thing is to make this thing work.
Yeah, well, when staff takes a look at this, we'll have to take into consideration things like circulation for emergency vehicles, things of that nature, distance of access point from 44. So there'll be a lot of consideration that will go into it, but just knowing that there's a chance of being flexible for a trade-off here will definitely help. And I will always choose a mature tree over a parking spot any day.
Thank you. Any questions for Director Corbin? Yes, sir.
I think Corey brought up a note about the underground exfiltration and the parking spaces. That may be easy to give up. But if we're digging large, putting 4 foot pipes, we got to go down 5, 6 foot deep. That's going to, and the way parking lots are designed is they come in to the middle, the pipes down the middle, take it down to this holding pond. The amount of damage that would do if they're going to lay that pipe anywhere close to those trees, they're going to tear up all those roots on that whole side of the tree. So before we jump for joy, we had a situation like this, it wasn't exactly the same, but if we think we solved the problem, saved the tree, gave up some parking spaces, and in 5 years, the tree's dead because we literally cut up half the roots. We didn't get anywhere. And now we don't have enough parking spaces and we don't have a tree. So I take that into consideration. That's something I'll probably ask if this comes back before us for some clarity on that. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Any questions for Shane? Good. Without objection, there is an expert in the room. Mr. Ray Jarrett is here. He's a botanist from University of Florida. And so without objection, I'd like him to come up and address Commissioner McGurk's concern about digging down, disturbing the roots, and what remediation could be done in order to save those, if at all.
Good evening. Ray Jarrett, 2990 Hardy Avenue, New Smyrna Beach resident, been a consulting arborist for 19 years. So the client did not contract me to be here or to speak on preserving the tree or working around it for construction, so I'm kind of working on the fly here. But in my opinion, it is very hard to isolate a tree like that and impact all around it. Jason kind of mentioned a project, and I'll kind of reflect back about 15 years to a project at Home Depot, the Dunkin' Donuts out front. They had to work around a 38-inch laurel oak and protect it outside the entrance to that building and change the parking. The tree failed 3 years later, cost $10,000 just to remove the tree at that point. So it's very difficult, in my experience, to isolate a tree that has grown up in a forest and isolate it with commercial space where it's exposed to all the elements, all those root impacts, and it survive. It's very, very difficult. And I'm a tree advocate, but sometimes on commercial sites, they just don't fit. So that's just my quick opinion on trying to preserve a tree in the middle of a project site.
Is it, sorry. What I was going to say is I noticed we talked about a number of other trees left on the site, so it's not exactly like they would be standing alone. They are part of what is now a natural environment.
Well, from the site plan that I saw, you would have to basically save those like in a tree well. Sort of what happened when Publix was first developed on State Road 44.
Mhm.
They conserved all those trees in those wells, and they survived for 5 or 10 years, but live oaks will show their impacts 10 to 15 years later, and those trees became hazardous. They were falling apart on every tropical storm and were risky to the property owners there. So isolating trees like that, when you leave them in a tree well, damage all the roots, change the soil grade all around them, you're pushing more water on them, they just really struggle.
Well, isn't that also true of that retention area that was shown on the outline?
So the retention area is in the southwest corner.
Yeah, the south part of the site. There's no trees being saved in that area.
Oh, I thought I saw trees on it, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and live oaks wouldn't really grow in that area anyways because it's too wet. So, but yeah.
Any more questions for Mr. Jared? Thank you for taking the time to stay, Ray. Appreciate that. Okay. The commission will now listen to the members of the public. Any member of the public wishing to speak on this topic, please come forward. Again, 3 minutes. And we won't be answering any questions. We just anxious to hear what your opinion might be. And name and address for the record, please.
Cindy Harris, Glencoe Road, New Smyrna. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for giving me a second chance up here. Very interesting, because I actually have a great idea. Up on Orange Avenue in Daytona Beach, there is an office building that is actually built on the second story, and right underneath it is all the parking. All the way around it is nice, beautiful, mature trees. They kept it. And as far as I know, everything's still standing. It's beautiful. This would serve two purposes. This would keep the beautiful mature trees around this medical building. It would also help in a hurricane situation when we've got water flowing. This building that they want to build is close to Oliver States, Corbin Park, major flooding areas here in New Smyrna Beach. That might be a great idea, a good option for this building. It's going to change some designs, but it might solve the parking issue. It might keep those trees. The only one that I really saw on the report that was on the agenda that needed to come down is number 8, which was the diseased elm tree. The oak trees that they talked about, they were just leaning from the windstorms. I have oak trees that are leaning from the windstorms. They're still surviving. We just piled more dirt on top of the root ball, and they're still living. So that might be an option for the developer to look at, is just to move the parking into the underground and elevators. Also, the physical therapy part of the medical facility, 3 miles down the road is a physical therapy facility. Either way they go, east or west. So just an option. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Appreciate your comments.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Kyle. I'm at 620 Hidden Pines Boulevard. And historic trees are protected on all property. And when the person purchased this property, the person could see that there were historic trees on there, or get it surveyed and have it shown that there were historic trees on there. So if you were not legally bound to give them permission to remove the historic trees, that's up to you guys. And, you know, it doesn't go against any of their property rights, because this happens for all the property. It's across the board. You're not, you know, doing something especially mean to them. So maybe the amount of buildable space on this property is too small for what they're proposing. Maybe they need to propose a smaller building. Just an option. That particular property collects a lot of water. And I've seen that collect water not just during hurricanes, but during heavy rain events. Down the backside of the property, if you look at the map, you'll see that there is a stream. That stream runs into the mosquito control canal that is already overburdened. In the front of the property, the ditch that goes along State Road 44 also runs into the mosquito control canal that is overburdened. So if you allow a lot of that property to be paved, which you're not required to do, then you're going to increase the amount of stormwater that runs off of that property into the mosquito control ditch or the mosquito control canal. So I propose that before you give permission for this, that you solve the problem of the mosquito control canal. Then maybe look at giving special permission to people to build more than you're required to provide them permission to do. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Anyway, yes, ma'am.
My name is Rhonda Spellers. I live 538 North Myrtle Avenue in New Smyrna. I haven't heard anybody speak about the traffic on 44 both ways. It's horrible. Without compromising their building and the parking, why don't you utilize public transportation? A lot of senior citizens don't drive anymore. And if you could get a contract with Votran to take the person to the facility, they get out, go in the facility. When they're finished, Votran picks them back up. It would alleviate traffic. You can have your building, you can have your facade, and the trees are still saved.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Anyone else for public participation?
Amber Dietz Cooper, 643 Middlebury Loop. So I have a photo of the proposal, so I'm going to peek at my notes here. But it looks like tree number 8 is at the entryway. So I like your idea, Mayor Cleveland, of maybe looking at moving the entryway. The other trees 9 and 4 are, as they mentioned, are in the middle of the driveway, but is there potential to maybe make like roundabouts? DeLand utilizes those a lot as a tree city, and so a lot of their roundabouts create like little areas for the trees to complete growing, and then you can just kind of drive around it. It might require minimizing the building size, but I think it's worth looking into. And then something that no one has really mentioned is that tree 8 has an active beehive. And so if you do tear that down, you're also contributing to the destruction of a beehive, which they're really important for pollinating and ecological purposes. And they're becoming more and more scarce due to habitat loss and urbanization. So I think that as a tree city ourselves, we have a due diligence to really think about conservation and be conscious about urbanization. And maybe relocate those beehives to an area that they would be protected and that won't be developed. So.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Appreciate that. Anyone else?
I just thought of something really quick. Damian Zambrana, 304 Inlet Street. I like the idea of perhaps looking at changing the entrance into the northeast corner. Also for the planners, hopefully the physician has looked at expected patient volume and let that assist in deciding a possible variance for the parking. Absolutely about the beehive, which is what I was gonna come up. Hopefully there's plans to relocate that beehive and not just destroy it. But I do agree that the possible life, and the arborist will be able to answer this, take a look at the possible life expectancy of the damaged trees, especially that damaged elm, which sounds like it's probably not gonna last more than 5 to 10 years, which we're gonna be, or less, which we're looking at removing anyway. So yeah. So I'm all for the removal of the trees if the life expectancy is short period, and definitely please make sure that we relocate that beehive.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else?
Good
Nice.
evening.
Mr. Gunther.
Steve Gunter, New Smyrna Beach, Volusia County. Excuse me, I'm going through a little respiratory deal. Talking about property rights, we as citizens have them, and with HB 503-403.814, parentheses 12, Florida statute says a project does not cause adverse water quantity or flooding impacts to receiving waters on adjacent lands, and adverse impacts to existing surface water storage, which a lot of water is stored on that property now, and its conveyance capabilities. So speaking of conveyance capabilities, that's right around the corner from my house. I had knee-deep water during Ian. I had water back in Milton. And I've talked to the DOT and the county. I brought Kyle out there, and I've showed where all your conveyance routes are already to capacity. They've dug the ones on north and south side of 44 deeper, wider. They still overflow. But the thing is, between that, the one on Otter, the one coming off of the bike path from the cemetery, from Sugar Mill, all of those are overwhelmed. So my question to the contractors and the city's challenge is, what new capacity, what new routes can you create? Because if you have a 5-gallon bucket of stormwater and it's full to the top, and then you approve an HOA and dump water in that bucket, it's out of the bucket and it's not legal. You're basically overdeveloping an area. I love the property rights. I don't want somebody to tell me about my property, but if you're destroying the homeowners around you with your project, then that's just not right. And these preservations with these arborists and all, I've seen this over and over again. These developers hire them, and they talk about killing them. Well, of course, the ones at Publix, go look at it. They put asphalt almost right up to the trees. You look at any of your literature, where do you water a tree? Where do you fertilize? At the tree line. They're solid asphalt. They are actually giving those trees a license to die slowly. And the same with Home Depot and whatnot. I would just like you guys to basically, the trees are important, but our homes are very important, and we have no recourse. You're about to do a 4-inch pipe on the south side of 44, bringing all that water into the Turnbull Canal. Then you're hopping over Jungle Road and putting another 4-inch, but Jungle Road is the dam, and nothing's going to leave. But you're pushing all that water, especially even this project. It will go in one of those tributaries. It's got to get to the inlet. So I just ask that you be more cognizant of the conveyance routes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gunter. Appreciate it. Anyone else for public participation? Seeing none, public participation is now closed. I'd like to hear, the quasi-judicial hearing is not yet closed. I'd like to hear closing remarks from the applicant, please.
Joey Posey again. Just to maybe briefly touch on some of the comments I heard, and a lot of them are PUD related, and again, as part of our site design, it's actually very helpful to hear this at the front end rather than the back end, and you can actually make accommodations. The roundabout was an interesting idea. I don't know if practically it'll work, but it's worth the exploration. The beehive being relocated, I was actually going to get up and say the same thing, that there's procedures for that too. The stormwater part of this is a big to-do that is going to have to be a little extra effort when it comes to that PUD, because we want to make that assurance very clear and the engineering to back it up, that the design is creating that new capacity, that we are not contributing to the problems that the folks experience out there. So that we are very conscious of that, and we want to make sure that does happen moving forward. As to the specifics of the site design regarding the trees, I think that there's a lot of feedback I have heard, and that there's clear direction on what I think maybe our homework is from an engineering perspective on what the accommodations that staff has maybe given us some guidance on that we can try to look to, with the understanding that, hearing from the experts and how, the impact of trees and how that occurs, that, I don't want to make a bigger problem later. I would much rather, while we have the opportunity to have an impacted tree, and let's plant in a safer spot those trees so they can flourish. So with that understanding, I think that maybe it's maybe for us to suggest, and again, I'm at the deference of the commission, that as part of moving forward with this PD, that maybe we table this until we get to the PD, with the understanding we have here, because this is what we needed. This is the direction we needed because. Obviously, from our perspective, I maybe fancy myself a mind reader, but it's good to it's good to hear and it's good to have this healthy discussion because we want to do the best thing we can for the city, and especially since it's a local doctor too. He does not want to be the problem.
Understand. As I understand it, Madam City Attorney, the applicant would like to postpone. Does that pass our procedural check?
Yes, Mr. Posey. Do you have a specific time frame in mind for returning?
I would love sooner rather than later, but I don't know if staff has a clear directive on the PD in its review. Okay. Well, and I guess that at this point, without some clear direction from staff, of course we'd want it sooner rather than later, but I can't give you a date certain. I know they're overwhelmed and they're busy, so. To try to match that date, I presume would be the goal with the PD and the historic tree.
So why don't, normally we do a motion to continue to a date certain. Why don't we do a motion to table until such time as planning puts this back on an agenda to coincide with the PUD?
Yeah.
Can we have a motion to table till this can be done coincidentally with the PUD?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Perine,
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk,
Yes.
Mayor Cleveland.
Yes, the motion's been tabled. Thank you, Mr. Posey. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Dowse. Appreciate that. Good to see you again. Thank you, Mr. Jared, for staying. Okay, so we're going to move to public hearings. Item number 10A, Madam City Attorney, if you'll read item 10A by title only, which is ordinance number 0425.
Ordinance 0425, an ordinance of the City of New Smyrna Beach granting a non-exclusive franchise to Clore & Sons, Inc., doing business as Edgewater Recycling, to provide construction and demolition debris removal services within the City of New Smyrna Beach, outlining franchisees' duties, providing terms and conditions under which such franchise shall operate, providing for severability, providing for conflicting ordinances, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, ma'am. I see Director Ray is in the batter's box. We're anxious to hear your report. This is a non-exclusive franchise agreement for Clore & Sons in Edgewater.
Yes, sir. This is just a standard non-exclusive franchise agreement for roll-off services to be used within the city for C&D, for veg. But I'm here to answer any questions that you all may have.
Right. This is for removal of C&D, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Any questions from my colleagues? Mr. Ray, I appreciate that short report more than you know. Thank you. Is there any citizen that wishes to speak? The public hearing is now open. Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance 0425?
So moved.
Second.
And second. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Perine,
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Cleveland.
Yes. On to item 10B, which is ordinance 0525, a non-exclusive franchise agreement to the Brad's Concrete Company. Madam City Attorney, if you'll read this ordinance for the second time by title only, please.
Ordinance number 0525, an ordinance of the City of New Smyrna Beach granting a non-exclusive franchise to Brad's Concrete, Inc. to provide construction and demolition debris removal services within the City of New Smyrna Beach, outlining franchisees' duties, providing terms and conditions under which such franchise shall operate, providing for severability, providing for conflicting ordinances, and providing an effective date.
Awesome. Director Ray, your report on this one.
This is just like the previous agenda item. I'm here for any questions.
This non-exclusive for Brad's Concrete, I'm assuming that's to provide the city with concrete jobs wherever you need them.
It's even beyond that. They can use their roll-offs for any C&D job throughout the city.
Got it. Any further questions? Okay, thank you for that. We'll now open the public hearing. Any citizen wishing to speak on this topic, please come forward and you'll be heard. Seeing none, public participation is now closed. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance 0525?
So moved.
Second.
And a motion by Commissioner Martin, second by Commissioner McGurk. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Caprini? And Mayor Cleveland?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Now on to 0624 to conduct a second reading and public hearing, which would approve text amendments to Article 6 of the Land Development Regulations. Madam City Attorney, if you'll read this for the second time by title only, please.
Ordinance number 0625, an ordinance of the City of New Smyrna Beach amending the Land Development Regulations, amending Article 6, Development, Design, and Improvement Standards, Section 60401, Stormwater Management and Drainage, to update the Stormwater Land Development Regulations, providing for codification, providing for public hearings, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. I see our senior engineer, Mr. Fegley, up there. Kyle, your report, please.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. If only I could be as concise as Director Ray, that would be terrific. I had a presentation at the last meeting, so I'm not going to go through the whole PowerPoint slides. The LDR revisions to Section 60401 just strengthens our ability to request more stormwater management on site, gives us better resiliency. It provides a litany of definitions that weren't in the previous code. It strengthens the pre-post discharge, meaning post peak in volume in most instances cannot exceed pre-development values. It strengthens some of our closed basin criteria. It actually gives a true value to the rainfall amount for the various storm events, 25-year, 24-hour, for instance, 9.5. That was just called out in writing. It wasn't given a definition, which we do in the updated code requirements. We even get into requirements for easements. We have some code compliance with some enforcement criteria. And we've even put conditions in the changes for review as needed at a maximum time frame every 2 years. We can always upgrade in between that time frame if need be. So, with that, I'll take any questions you have regarding the revisions to the stormwater management guidelines.
Let me just open it up. Kyle, we went through a long presentation last time. Lest anybody in the public not remember that, play the tape, please. Would you summarize the essence of what I called turning a qualitative document into a quantitative document and putting some teeth into some relatively loose parameters across the board in the name of stormwater management? And further, that this is not one and done. This will be now reviewed at a periodic basis as required, as topography changes, as sea level rise, and any other items that might come up. Something a little more fulsome, not the detail work, but the general positions. You talked about freeboard, you talked about the berms, you talked about the size of the pipes. Stuff like that might be instructive for those watching and listening. Okay, certainly. Yeah, it does have a lot of technical parameters to it. We've got definitions on hydraulic grade lines, which is important. And one of the things I touched upon last time was a tailwater condition. The tailwater condition is just the discharge, the outfall. If that's estimated incorrectly or too low, it'll allow surging back into the system. And that's probably the number one item as far as input into your ADI-CPR or Stormwise software that can control your outfall. So we have defined what is a tailwater condition. Is it the high water level?
is it has to be at the same storm event. So you can't use a tailwater level that's too low. If you're designing 25-year storm event, your tailwater has to be at the 25-year storm event downstream. It can't be at the mean annual or a lower storm event. So those are some of our guidelines we have. And again, the pre and post volumes were changed. We actually allowed a 10% greater post discharge. So if you're discharging 1 gallon per minute, you were able to discharge 1.1 gallons per minute in the post design. We just saw a conceptual plan, this evening on 44 in Timber Lane. So all the future developments, they cannot discharge any greater volume than is currently being discharged off that property. So it's very strong technically. So again, we've had some input from like VCARD and design. Our consultant also has touched base with other land development regulations from the county, from neighboring cities. And these provide probably the highest criteria in combination of any other guidelines that I'm aware of at this time.
Appreciate that. Thank you for the synopsis. Any questions from my colleagues? Commissioner McGurk.
Thank you, Mayor. Kyle, thank you for this. I want to use the case that we just listened to. If you can bring this down in layman's terms, we have a piece of property, nothing's on it. It's very wet. It may even have some sort of water stream moving through it. We're gonna build on this. The common statement is that water is going to flood the surrounding areas. In layman's terms, tell me how that's not gonna happen.
Okay, we have actually provisions in the new code. If we're familiar with areas that are flood prone, we have the ability to increase the requirements. But what we're going to do when we look at these plans, and of course they submit a geotechnical report. So there's a stormwater evaluation, there's SPT, standard penetration tests, borings, etc. So it examines the soils types, the permeability rates, the seasonal high water table. So it examines all the characteristics of the soils. We also look at, what we'll do is just not look at, hard copies, black and white, documents and topographic survey. It all looks great. It all looks like it's gonna work fine. But we actually go outside the boundaries of that particular property. At a minimum, I know the district requires 50 feet topo outside properties, but you have to look at, in that particular case, there is a ditch that runs from west to east. It does go into a canal system that then discharges under 44. Okay, I think as it was referred to as a mosquito control ditch. But we look at those items. So we look at, say, if they come on site, you cannot come in and build up and dam up an existing stormwater conveyance system. So they simply can't come in and just build on that property, because then everything upstream would then have the repercussions of the flooding.
We'll back up.
Correct. So we look at all that. We just don't look at the site-specific area. Of course, we have county LIDAR, and we have aerials. So it's a lot easier today to look at the overall, you want to look at, the basin area, not just this, 5-acre, 10-acre site. So when we look at that, we see what's contributing, and then what is the capacity of that conveyance system that's there. And then once they submit the plans, we look at it in its natural condition. So what that means is it's the old TR 55 guidelines, is they actually give a number to the existing foliage, forested area, barren, developed. So there's a curve number that's given to that. So you have to look at that, and then that will tell you how much discharges from that property today. So if there is 1 cubic foot per second and a total of 10 gallons, so that's rate and flow, rate and volume, then you cannot exceed that in the post-design construction. And that's very hard to do, because they're going to come in, and a lot of times they'll come in and say, well, We think it discharges a lot more than what it should because they give a high curb number to the existing soils, and we disagree. So we scrutinize these to the nth degree. So you look at all that, and then when they develop, obviously, you look at things like time of concentration. Right now, if the rain falls, raindrop hits and takes time. It goes on natural, undisturbed area, right? Post-construction, it hits asphalt, it goes immediately. So we're saying use a time of concentration of 10 minutes. We're not taking 30 minutes or 35. We dealt with developers before. That only hurts them because then it bumps up their volume requirements. So that's how we can control the volume that's going to leave that property after construction versus what leaves today.
Okay, so, and from my layperson's perspective, there's a lot of calculations that go into determining how much water has to be held on the property up to a certain storm event.
Yes, sir.
And that includes what the water table is and how deep the stormwater pond is going to be, or whether you have to add dirt to then create the stormwater pond because you have to hold enough water above the water table. There's just a lot of calculations that go into this. And the new LDR proposals are going to, in layperson's terms, and summarize, are going to do what for that property in the surrounding area?
Well, it depends on when they submit. If they've already submitted, but for instance, the storm event for the 25-year, 24-hour, that's gone up slightly. And we're telling you it's 9.5 inches. So when they run, Matt was here earlier, he runs at SCS 323, it's a bell curve. Usually at the 12th hour, it discharges X amount. But now we're going to make you model a higher storm event. So they're going to be required to provide a larger retention pond. So that's what it breaks down. That's how it breaks down. And if they're going to use exfiltration, which they may use exfiltration on that site, I'm kind of suspect because I know there's a high water table and it's a low area. So we go in and our guidelines are a little more strict on the seasonal high water table in the bottom of your envelope that's being used for exfiltration. So obviously if you use an exfiltration and they're saying, oh yeah, it's going to capture in 5,000 gallons, right? Well, we're looking at these a lot closer than we've ever looked at calculations. If you've got a seasonal high water table that's into your exfiltration system,
right,
you're not containing at all. And not only that,
in other words, the exfiltration system can't drain into the high water table, is what you're saying. The water table is too high.
You're correct. You're
So
correct.
it won't drain.
They could show it on paper all you want. There it is. It's drawn, two-dimensional. But we look at things like, the geotechnical report. So it has to really work. You just can't show this. It's not going to function properly.
So and I'm one of these people. I'm just like the people out in the community who see things and they just see a lot of water on a site and they scratch their head and say, how's it possible to hold all that water? But I thank you for your comments. I'm not going to take all your time tonight. So I appreciate that in layman's terms, and I'm sure there'll be lots of further questions I have about how this works and trying to deal with and answering at the same time the concerns that lay people have who are not engineers and don't necessarily understand all the technical language that you use, tailwaters and all this stuff. You got to learn all this stuff. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Martin.
I hope you're also looking at, first of all, I'd like to say how thrilled I am that these regulations are coming forward. And I look forward to getting some of the answers, but most of the questions I've had that I've forwarded are about clarification and editing, that kind of thing. But I'm hoping that in addition to these, that we're going to look at building methodology. And we know that sea level rise and sediment compromise the available volume for stormwater. So what may work well now may not work as well in 5 years. I'm also hoping we're going to get inspections and various other things incorporated and update these again soon. The cost of moving water is astronomical and receiving area is finite. So one of the questions I have is that, okay, gee, this is great. We know you can take the discharge from this site, but when we enter it into that overall master stormwater plan, the receiving bodies of water or areas, we don't have a way to expand that. True?
You mean expand your canal system, conveyance systems?
Well, every canal ends up going somewhere. As somebody once said about pumping, sure, I can pump it, but pump it to where it's all full. And that is, I don't understand how, like, we talk about no impacts downstream. Are we talking about 5 feet downstream? Are we talking about 5 miles downstream? That area is still fuzzy to me. And I am, of course, concerned understanding that downstream may be finite. Where are we moving it to that we'll be able to accept it in the future? So I'm hoping that this will be cleared in revisions to this. Going full circle, I'm hoping that we get both above and below ground level planning. Just a quick question. When we talk about things like normal water level, is that a rolling number? Does that change annually or is that fixed?
It does change. Obviously, it's not the same elevation in the Sugar Mill subdivision, which is the highest residential area in the city, versus Beachside versus Turnbull Golf Course is very low. So the normal level is going to change. It's going to change elevations. It's also going to change depending on the type of soils. And we look at normal levels. We look at seasonal high water levels, and we all know that water bodies in New Smyrna Beach are tidally influenced. And designing at one point in time private, we all know. I used to direct the guys, go out in a drought, get the normal water level, and that way it'll, increase the volume in our pond and give the developer more space. I know those. I know these tricks. I know what to do. And you can't come with me and tell me normal water level is at 1.0. No, I don't believe you. That's, normal water level if the river is 1.2. So we know these things. So it does change, and it does depend on the weather. It depends on the time of year. Now's a great time for those geologists to take their borings. Yeah. It's not the wet season, but we have to take that into account. Okay.
Yeah. It's a concern that what we plan for, even if we get the wettest moment of this year, will that seasonal high water level be anything like it will be in 2030 for the same place?
It takes a while for it to come up. Correct.
Yeah. So we know that there's going to be less capacity. How do we plan for that going forward? How's that?
Any other questions? Commissioner Perrine.
I just want to thank you for being proactive, and I like that we're strengthening our stormwater systems, and I hope that we're a good example for other cities that are talking about doing that as well. And I appreciate you taking this and doing this ahead of everyone else.
Oh, thank you.
Kyle, thank you for doing it, and with the understanding this is iterative. This was putting teeth in a document that didn't have it, and it's not one and done. You'll continue to review it over time, and that was a nice modification that came out at Planning and Zoning that you'll continue at a periodic basis. I can't remember what was written down, but you will keep looking at it over and over again and change it as conditions change. So appreciate your briefing. Thank you very much. Public hearing is now open. Is there any citizens who wish to speak on this topic? Please come forward. You'll be heard. You'll be given 3 minutes. And when you come up, your name and address for the record, please. Dr. Herman.
Randy Herman, 108 Esther Street. Good evening. I appreciate the presentation, and particularly the enlarged one in the previous meeting. But one of the things that I believe the mayor raised last time is the cost factor. I think the earlier discussion about the proposed property and balancing up what the developer wants to do and can afford, and what the city needs to have and what the community needs are all different pressure points on coming to a decision. So I don't know if there's any financial connection to this revamped. You know, is this going to cost a developer X amount more to meet these standards? Is it considerable or is it minor? And I guess the other question is, sort of back to what Commissioner Martin was saying, down the track, there is an ultimate cost to the city if it doesn't work. So I think the cost factor is good. So I hope that's worked in some way as we review it. What is the cost to the developer? What is the cost to the city? And what is the cumulative cost to the citizenry? But I really commend this work, and it's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Tiffany Kyle, 620 Hidden Pines Boulevard, and I want to thank you guys for working on this so hard. I know this is really hard to do, given all of the problems that are happening. I want to echo what the last gentleman said, except that he was emphasizing cost to developers. Consider the cost to the city, the taxpayers, to everyone, if these constraints are not put in place for developers, because we've seen what happens when developments increase the likelihood of flooding to existing structures. Then taxpayers have to pay to elevate those structures or buy the people out or do something to mitigate. So the costs are not just to the developers, it's to the taxpayers too if it's not done well.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Anybody else? Public participation is now closed. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance 0625?
So moved.
Got a motion
Second?
and a second. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Perrine,
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk,
Yes.
Mayor Cleveland.
Yes, thank you. The motion carries. We're on to first readings, and so this is ordinance 0725, which establishes a boating restrictive area, effectively a no-wake zone, 500 feet near a sewage pump-out station near Yacht Club Island. Madam City Attorney, if you'll read 0225 for the first time by title only, please.
Ordinance 0725, an ordinance of the City of New Smyrna Beach amending the Code of Ordinances, amending Chapter 90 Waterways, Section 90-155, establishment of special slow speed minimum wake zones and special idle speed no wake zones on Indian River North, to establish an idle speed no wake boating restricted area within 500 feet of a pump out station near Yacht Club Island, providing for codification, providing for public hearing, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Second reading and public hearing will be February 25th, 2025.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. Appreciate that. On to Section 12, Boards and Commissions. Madam City Clerk, I believe we have one to go on nominations for the Charter Review. Do you want to set that up?
Sure. So each commissioner on that last meeting appointed 2 members to the Charter Committee. The mayor had 3 members, and we are here today for Commissioner McGurk, Zone 3 Commissioner, to appoint his final appointment for Charter Review.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner McGurk.
Thank you, Mayor. So, I apologize because it was my oversight that when I thought we were doing it like we did last time, which we got 1 appointment outside our district, 1 appointment in our district, and I didn't read close enough, and we didn't have it set up like that. My goal is to get the best people on the Charter Review Committee, regardless of district. So I still feel I have someone outside my district, and I would ask for the commission's humble acceptance to allow me to appoint that person. If the commission does not want to allow that, I understand, and I will make an appointment for someone in my district.
Okay, very good. Any discussion or questions or comments, rebuttal? I have one, but I'll save it till the end.
I believe that doing it by zones, having that distribution with zones, really is an opportunity to get eyes on all areas of the city, and that it's an important component in that charter review process.
Anyone else? I couldn't disagree more. I don't think zip code has anything to do with how people think about the charter review. Charter review has nothing to do with zip codes and where you live. It has to do with differentiating thought. It's the seminal document for our city. It's like the Constitution. And so diversity of thought is primary here. So I don't think that all conservatives live in one place and all liberals live in another and all non-party people live in another. I think zip code is immaterial. And so that's just my personal view. I respect Commissioner Martin's view to be unilaterally ecumenical on how you decide for who goes on. If the topics were about where I live, none of the topics are about where I live in my view. So if there was a motion to allow this, that might clear our path forward. Is there a motion to allow Commissioner McGurk to select a member not in his zone? I'll make the motion for argument's sake. Is there a second? There is no second. The motion dies.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the consideration, and I will appoint Mark Billings from Zone 3, which is my district, and I'll make sure that you get his personal contact information sometime this week.
I have
Thank you,
I have a nomination to accept Mark Billings. Is there a second? He's in that zone.
I thought we appointed, not nominated.
We have to approve the nomination.
You can do a motion to approve the appointment.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Great, thank you. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Perrine?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Mayor Cleveland?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGurk. Thank you, Mr. Billings, for stepping forward and serving your city. Okay, Commissioner Ashley's not with us tonight for personal reasons.
You handled it already?
No, we need a motion.
Okay, yeah, we need a motion to excuse his absence. The city clerk, does it meet one of the delineated criteria? Yes, it does.
All right.
Motion to approve.
There's a motion to approve his absence.
So move.
I'll second.
And a second. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Perrine?
Yes.
Mayor Cleveland?
Yes. Very good. On to commission reports. Vice Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see, we had some interesting things. I was down at Farmington learning about DPIC's, or Deering Park Innovation Center's southern component. The fire department, I was pleased to be included in their awards banquet. Love seeing the families. I attended the TPO for long-range planning setup, and I hope that everybody will be watching for the citizen involvement in long-range planning for transportation needs here in New Smyrna Beach, and I thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Commissioner McGurk.
Thank you, Mayor. Attended the Habitat for Humanity's annual gala fundraiser, and it was a wonderful event. Very proud of our community and the way we showed up for that, and the amount of money raised. And I want to extend my apologies for not being able to get double booked for attending. Valley represents us on the First Step Shelter, and that was the First Step Shelter's also gala. And so I heard it went very well, and I want to thank you for your participation on that. And next year, I'm going to go with you, and I'll flip-flop. I look forward to the events coming up. We have Art Fiesta, which is another community event that is, at least in my mind, second to Images, been around a very long time. Look forward to it coming up on the 22nd, 23rd. And I missed the firefighters employee benefit. I was out of town, but I'm excited to see those who won and got recognized, and it was a great event, I'm sure. Thank you, Mayor.
You betcha. Commissioner Perrine.
So I'm still a little hoarse from being the MC, but I'm happy to say we had a record attendance and we had a wonderful turnout with our police, and I think the chief and Officer Reeve and Citizen Kimberly for being there. And we have a report that just came out today that I sent to Sharon. I'm going to ask her to send it to you guys tomorrow, that breaks down where we are for January and how our numbers relate to the other cities. And after this meeting, I've actually asked Chief Kirk to give us a presentation on how we've improved our homeless population from last year to this year. And they're going to work on that and get with our manager, Cowper, and present that to the community, because we've had some huge success stories and wins, and hopefully next year it won't be on the same night so that we can actually attend both, because they're both great causes. And I'm sorry that I missed the Habitat one as well. Love Mark Billings and everything that they do, and I appreciate all you guys do this whole board cares about our community, and it shows. We try to make it to all the events that we possibly can.
Thank you, ma'am. I commend the Commissioner Perrine for going there and also being a member of that board. Lest you not know, what we're talking about exactly is that we have a relationship with a homeless shelter that is up in Daytona Beach outside of our city limits, and we pay to play. And so it is not totally funded by itself, but it takes benevolent donations from around the county, and we participate in that. This initiative that this gala that Commissioner Perrine's talking about is one such gala. Daytona Beach hosts it because they're the major player behind it, but it indeed is a big deal. It's a piece of our initiative, the mayor's initiative here on homelessness, which combined with the local charitable organizations, houses of faith, our police department, and the Advent Hospital, we have made a big step toward ending the cycle of dependency for homelessness here. So really, really well done. Just to comment on tonight's meeting, lest anyone think that this commission does not care about stormwater and trees and preservation. Our institutional response should have been very clear tonight. We made every attempt to try to work with the business owner and at the same time make a preservation. I think Commissioner Martin's brilliant idea about, hey, can we look into what the parking piece is, was a key to their potentially getting what they need. There are a few other things that need to be looked at, but we are definitely trying to make this work for the business and at the same time not to damage our amazing environment. I believe spring break is a month away. And so you're going to hear more. The city manager will have our police chief come up and talk more in the future about what our preparations are as we have years before, lest anyone think that we're not on our game with preparation for spring break. 17th to the 21st, I believe, are the dates for our neighboring counties and Volusia County. Just so happens that all those neighboring counties line up with our spring break for our county. I attended a stormwater management subcommittee by elected officials this past week where we are forming the essence of a master plan. The county is going to hire a full-time director to do stormwater management. We will dovetail our initiatives into the county and neighboring cities so that this whole thing comes out just like it needs to. It won't be quick, it won't be cheap, but we will eventually get there. Commend Mark Billings and the folks for Habitat for Humanity. 35 years, well over 100 homes built since their founding. The gala on Saturday night was an amazing time. Fire department, I had the pleasure of going and listening to an award ceremony. Firefighter of the Year was Steve Bubba Jones, and congratulations to Bubba for winning that. And the EMS Provider of the Year, a new award by the fire department, was Rose Rossiter. Congratulations to both those superstars inside our city. And that's all I have. Madam City Clerk, have you got a report?
No report at this time, thank you.
Welcome to the dais. We're delighted to have you here. Thank you, Sharon, for stepping up. Madam City Attorney?
No report tonight.
Madam, Mr. City Manager?
Nothing further, sir.
Excellent. Anything else from my colleagues? We're adjourned.